Hey.
Why the hell did you say to be quiet if you're going to mute me anyways? What kind of shit is that?
I
That's-
was going to mute you.
No, it said muted. You have been muted.
I did not mute you.
Well, it said I
Did
was
you,
muted.
Ash? Ash did it. She's now an admin, so she probably muted you.
I did not mute you. I was playing with my phone. Anyways, we're live. Let's do this.
Anyway, okay. Can we begin? Are you guys done playing around? Okay, well, here we go. Oh, jeez. Okay. Hey. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Nightmare Road. I, of course, am one of your hosts, Decon, here with the very, very mysterious
SOS. And I'm here with the one and only
Messy Jessie. And I'm here
Wait a
with
minute.
the lovely
Ash the Oracle.
Wait.
What?
The one and only Messy Jessie? I thought Ashley Oracle was the one and only.
I am the one.
She's the one and only Messy Jessie. But I am the one and only Ash the Oracle. There is no other.
Just like there's only one and only Refried Dreams. Waiting for the album to drop.
Yeah, well, I mean, we had some issues because the Coyote was kind of demanding a little bit too much money, so then we kind of had to, but anyways, that's besides the point. Hey guys, welcome to...
Did your bedazzled pants all fall apart? Like the bedazzled part? Come pop,
The vest?
No, so we have what I thought was practice ones, so I kind of tore them, and then I realized that those were the...
Okay.
I thought that you dropped a song and I was singing it today, so
he not only dropped the song but also drops the pants, apparently. Just saying.
Well, the bedazzles just all over.
Well,
is that what they call them now? Bedazzles?
Well, I guess you could say that I dropped the ball on that one.
No pun intended.
Thank you, thank you guys. I'll be here all night. Actually, I should have said more like I dropped the ball on that one. Hello. Anyway.
Hello.
Anyway, so let's get back to being professional. So today's episode is actually a good one. It's on the Knights Templar. So who's presenting the show?
The one and only.
Ashley Oracle?
No, the one and only Messy Jessie.
Oh, sorry, I'm getting confused here.
No, I've been watching stuff on this all freaking week, and I still can't wrap my mind around literally everything. So she's the perfect one.
Okay, well, all right then, perfect one. Let's present the damn show. Hey, go ahead.
Jesus Christ. So, okay, here we are. We are talking about the Knights Templar. And if nobody knows what the Knights Templars or Knights were, they were actually, they provided a mystery, intrigue, and fascination through the times, right? And we all know that we watch certain shows, one in particular, the Da Vinci Code. If nobody knows, the Knights Templar were part of that. Why are you shaking your head?
That movie sucked, and those books were terrible. But anyways, go ahead.
That's a good movie. What's wrong with you?
But a lot of people would associate the Knights Templar with the Da Vinci Code and what they protected as far as, the bloodline of Jesus Christ. So it's pretty interesting. I agree with Decon that it was a very interesting show that also sparked a lot of conspiracy theories with the Knights Templar.
Like that movie?
I liked the movie. It held my interest, but
Exactly.
Again, this is Hollywood, and they have to dramatize a lot of the story.
Mhm.
So, we know that historians, conspiracy theories, and the general public for centuries known officially as the Poor Fellow Soldiers of Christ is what they were called, and the Temple of Solomon. This medieval Christian military order was found in the early 12th century. While the primary mission was to provide Christian pilgrims traveling to the Holy Land, their story is so far a lot complex. There's so many different stories of what the Knights Templar did, sightings everywhere. You know, it's just been crazy to dive into this. It's kind of like, what really is the truth about the Knights Templar, right?
Yeah.
So,
No, and go ahead.
oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. So one of the things historically with the Knights Templar, they were formed, 1200. Some people even say, mid 1100s, and the reason why was because. So what was going on historically? Remember that Islam was running rampant throughout the whole Middle East, and the Muslims were slaughtering everybody. Under a general, and then later became King Saladin. Anybody that was non-Muslim or even non-Arabic was getting beheaded, and it was insane.
Yes.
So they were attacking. They were attacking pilgrims that were going across, and they would take monks and they would burn them alive. And here's an interesting thing. I might be a little bit off topic a little, but anyway. So so Muhammad was famous for running through these raids, and amongst one of those raids, he caught himself and you can find it. So there's a book out there called the Sirach Ali Hilalach, the Words of the Prophet. So on those, they talk about Sirach Ali Hilalach.
Oh wow. Okay.
Okay. Anyway, yeah, you speak it with the back of your throat. Anyway, so on there, it tells this. It talks about this story, and this is, of course, remember, this is coming from Muhammad and his followers. How he caught himself a girl, and her name was Mary the Cot, and Mary the Cot was this daughter of this Christians, and he asked if he could take her as a sex slave, and he said, of course. Remember, she was like 11, so she was taken, and so then after she was taken, she was violated, and then this girl said, one day there will rise up a group of people that will stand up to your monstrosities. Literally, 60 years later, you have pilgrims that are being attacked, and then at some point they said, you know what, we're going to get some training from the knights, and we're going to defend ourselves. So from there, the Knights Templar arose. So there were these monks that were heavily armored, and but continue. There's so many conspiracies I have. Sorry, guys.
I know. It's okay.
I kind of went off.
And you're right with they were founded in 1119 AD. So that's the earliest known, establishment of the Knights Templar. It was a group of 9 at this time, French knights that were led by Hughes de Payens, shortly after the first crusade. Yeah, something like that. It's Payens. I think it's Payens. I think it's Payens. So Hughes de Payens, I'm thinking. But I don't know. But anyway. I don't speak French, so.
No, it sucks.
Yeah, I used to. This crusade was the first crusade was between 1096 and 1099, which is kind of weird because they said it was founded in 1119. So this again is kind of like, when did they really start?
The math is mathing.
Correct.
No, I think what it is was that the Crusaders. So the Crusades were formed before that, but I think that these monks actually took training from the Crusaders, and then that's how they formed the group. So, the Crusades, I think originally it started under Pope Urban II, but anyways, these soldiers emerged before the Knights Templar because they were the first, and then the monks wanted training, and they took military training and their armor from these people.
Yes.
Yes.
And they're very, very military oriented. It was interesting to read about how they were kind of feared in battle, if you really think about it, because they trained all the time. They were very, I don't say chastised, but they were very, they followed rules. There was like, when I did this research on it, there were so many rules, especially when they were eating. There were certain rules that they had to follow.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it's great. I'll get to that in a minute. But their rise in power, of course, they grew rapidly in size and influence after being endorsed by Bernard of Clairvaux. He was a prominent religious figure, and he was a Cistercian monk. So again, there's the monk influence that we're talking about. In 1129, there was a Council of Troyes, the order receiving official recognition from the Catholic Church then, giving it a religious mission and, the Pope's support. So they had a lot of power behind them after they were recognized with the Catholic Church. I mean, even then before, they had privileges and wealth. They were granted special privileges by Pope Innocent II in 1139. Though they were able to have authority, only a pope's authority, not to the kings or the local bishops. This was independence allowed them to operate freely across Europe and the Holy Lands. So they were given this almost not necessarily like pope, authority, but close to it, because they were given that blessing from the Pope to do what they needed to do to protect whatever they were protecting.
Yeah, and it was a lot of different things. I mean, and that was the big struggle that France had at that time, was that you had the King of France, and he was beginning to really struggle with control, because also you had the Pope, so they were both struggling. So what ended up happening was, I mean, these guys, they started to train the way they rose to power was they would ask for a small fee. We'll train you, we'll teach you, we'll do all these things, but you have to give me a small fee to protect yourself against Islamic hordes that were, still running rampant around that area, around what at that time was Gaul. So these people trained so many, they started building a big, a pot of basically, wealth. So then they started hiring their own soldiers and they started training them. So one of the interesting things was that at some point they got so powerful that, remember, the Pope was like, we'll use you guys as, basically like my elite bodyguards. But then what ended up happening was they started to they ran into a lot of what was at the time, the Protestants weren't around. I think the Protestants showed up like maybe 100 years after this, but they started basically thinking for themselves through scripture. They're like, okay, so now that we can actually read, biblical text, they started saying like, wait a minute, why do we have to obey this individual that not only is his position not biblical, but this person has authority? So then what ended up happening was, the Pope asked the King of France for a favor. He's like, you need to help us buff these people, because they're too strong. So can you lend me some of your army? So that's the way that the Pope worked alongside the king back then. They were doing each other favors. So the Crusades. So the awesome thing was that the Crusades were like, we can try to take them on. So we can go, and they're like, you know what? War is too costly. We train them, by the way. So we can't just run them over because they know our tactics and all that kind of stuff. So then a little bit of bargaining started happening, and they were given authority over certain regions. Sorry, I kind of took over. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. And you're right. They became very wealthy. The Templars, they got like large estates, built castles. They created a network of Templar, houses basically across Europe and the Middle East.
Heck yeah.
So, I mean, they knew what they were doing at the time with the backing from the Pope at the time. And we talked about like their military crusades and their role. The Knights became a military force, obviously, in the Holy Land, fighting along other Christian orders. such as like Knights Hospitaller. I don't know. I have never heard of that, and so I got to look that up. I think they were similar to the Knights Templar, but they were different. We'll have to look and see what that is.
Huh. Yeah.
I think they fell under a different jurisdiction and then under a different enough belief system, because back then even Catholicism itself was beginning to split, and then that's how you have, you know, your Catholicism, and then you have your Eastern Orthodox Catholicism. So I think that's where they begin to fall. Yeah.
And they also participated in a lot of key battles in that time, including the Battle of Hattin, which was in 1187. It was a Muslim forces under Saladin, and decisively defeated the Crusaders, leading to the fall of Jerusalem. So that was pretty interesting to read about that. We know that they're renowned for their discipline, their heavy, they used heavy cavalry. They were very fearlessness in battle. Like I mentioned before, people were scared of them because when they came to town, it's like the boys are back in town, right?
Yeah.
So I was going to show you guys a picture of some of them that I found. Welcome to my... I have to do this. Sorry. 1 second. I'm doing
present it. Down at the bottom of the screen.
I did. I have to.
Yeah, you have to find it. Yeah.
Yeah.
What I found what I thought was really interesting was that we're going to get into what happened to them ultimately, right? But the document that pardoned them was lost. And it was found in 2001 in the Vatican.
Yeah. It was lost.
Lost. It was
quote unquote.
So yeah.
What's cool was how, you know, Jerusalem fell to the Muslims. Eventually, they were taken back. You know, it was taken back, the Holy Land, and then that's how we have, you know, what they call the Crusaders' Cross, which is when they set forth the 4, you know, strongholds, so they can keep an eye out on around there, and also for the 4 corners of the earth that the gospel is spread. And that's this tattoo I have.
So you mean on their uniform, on their? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
On their,
yeah, it's just a picture.
I heard it was the Cross of Lorraine.
Here's what's interesting. Sorry, guys. So what's cool is that. So what's mysterious about these people is that they had symbols, right? And their symbol is actually found all around the world. Even the cross, you know, that type of cross that they had was found all around the world. And then some of those, so there was a lot of pagan tribes that came later, and then they realized that a lot of those pagan tribes, not just North pagans, but also Celtic pagans and all this kind of, they actually borrowed a lot of symbolism from the Knights Templar. So when you look at a lot of things, you're like, wait a minute, like the Knights Templar actually, their symbols predate a lot of these pagan tribes. So they're trying to figure out like how far does this reach actually go? You know what I mean? Like, because also they became, one of the conspiracies was that these people went and they sought out, there it is. So a lot of these people, they went and they sought out like sacred artifacts, not just, you know, what was sacred to the Catholic Church, but also a lot of things that they considered that was like, okay, this is spiritual to somebody. So they started collecting them and then kind of protecting it. And a lot of people and a lot of historians look at them and they're like, were these people, it was almost as if they were like almost like the Wells Fargo of that time, because, you know, Wells Fargo, you had gold. I need you guys to transport this and then to protect it, you know, and these guys were protected with their lives. So they were wondering if maybe that's what they became at some point, was that they had, because they had so many sacred objects with them that were not only sacred, like I said, to the Catholics, but also some people from India, you know, certain scrolls that were considered holy was found like in their possession. They're like, were these people like tasked to protecting, you know what I mean?
Possibly.
What's really interesting about this cross as well is is this cross symbol was that it shows up. The French adopted it. So they said during World War II, the Cross of Lorraine was the symbol of the French resistance to the Nazi rule.
Mhm.
And they showed it also. It's also in the Exxon and Nabisco and even stamped on Oreo cookies.
Yeah,
Isn't that crazy?
Damn those
Isn't it?
Oreos.
Yeah.
they're delicious.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and it's
Then I
interesting that you
covered-
talk about. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I just said I have some Oreos in my cupboard. It was not important.
I
You
need
go
some
ahead.
Oreos.
Oh boy.
So it's interesting you guys talk about like Wells Fargo and the banking. Apparently, these Knights Templars were very trusted with banking. They were trusted bankers and advised to the kings and nobility. They financed wars, they provided loans to rulers, and managed estates for wealthy patrons. This financial power made them an indispensable part of European politics and commerce. And this is kind of where it starts getting like one king is like, okay, you can't be this powerful and richer than thou are, you know. And that's, you know, what Deacon was saying. There was a king that got very, very jealous, and he's like, I am not gonna deal with this. And we talk about the decline and fall and the arrest and executions of the Knights Templar. So by the late 13th century, the Crusaders were failing and the Christian presence in the Holy Land was waning. Okay. In 1291, the last Christian stronghold in the Holy Land, Acre, fell to a Muslim force, and the Templars, along with other Crusader forces, retreated to Cyprus. Now, without their primary mission of defending the Holy Land, the Templars' purpose came to like in question. Like, what is your purpose really? Is it really? I mean, you think about it. What do you guys think their purpose was? Was it really to protect whatever they were protecting for the church?
I think
Or for the
originally,
lands? Yeah.
I mean,
Or were
originally it
they-
was to protect the people, the pilgrims, right? The
Mhm.
people
Yeah.
who were going to visit the Holy
Yeah.
Land.
Yeah.
But I think it
yeah.
morphed.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, you know, conspiracies saying, okay, yeah, originally this was developed to protect the pilgrims, right? But then later they started getting more richer and
Yeah.
more bigger
greedy.
and then more greedy. And, you know, that's kind of what happened. So it was under the pressure of King Philip, Pope Clement, it's a V. I gotta remember. I think it's
It's a V.
it's a V.
You sound like
Roman letters.
He was the
It's not
fourth.
a V and
Yeah,
I.
King
fourth,
Philip the
fifth.
Fourth. Yeah.
Yeah. He reluctantly dissolved the Knights Templar in 1312. There was a group of property, you know, monasteries, assets that were given to the rival order. And so what happened, many of the knights were captured. They were brutally tortured until
They
they
were burned at the
confessed to
stake,
faults.
weren't they?
Yes. Including one of their grand masters of the knights, and it was Templar de Molay.
Mhm.
He was executed in 1314. And so, yeah, he was pretty tortured. It was crazy because they also were telling them that you either, you know, say that you're guilty of these false charges, was, you know, like heresy, homosexuality, financial corruption, devil worshiping, fraud, you name it. You were guilty of it and you will be tortured until you say so, which is crazy.
Where the
Yeah.
Catholic Church actually exonerated them in 1312, but that chin and parchment was lost until
Yeah.
2001. And
Mhm.
then, so it's
So-
terrible.
So this is where it gets good. Okay, so right, so you had their leader. So they were pardoned, right? Because they're like, okay, you guys can guard this stuff. The captain's like, you're pardoned. The King of France was like, listen, we can't let these people go. You owe me a favor. Remember what we did for you. Now you owe us a favor, and we need you to utilize your forces. We'll combine them, and then we'll capture. So they captured them, and then they when they were burning them at the stake, you had the famous words where he says, for if there is true justice out there, upon
Mhm.
if there's a true justice, for the Lord sees all things, and you will get what you have coming to you, for
Yeah.
you have usurped justice and called it your own. So, and he dies, right? Then what happens is, literally a week later, the Pope is out there walking out in this thing, gets struck by lightning, killed.
Yeah.
The king, the
Yeah.
king, that same year, I think it's a couple months later, goes out there, has a massive stroke, and also dies. So
That is
I think
People
it
are
nuts.
was Philip the Fair is what they called it. It was King Philip of France
He
in particular.
ended up dying of a stroke. The one with the Pope was funnier because he just goes out there and he gets struck by lightning.
So
You
I don't
know.
know if you can read Decon because you're probably on your phone. So there's a question: is the Order of the Assassins the Muslim version of the Knights Templar, or were they totally different things?
Is the let's see, is the Order of the
Order of
Assassins the
Assassins.
Muslims version?
Do you need glasses?
The Muslim, yeah, actually I do. Or were they
This
totally
is
different things?
kind of funny
Okay,
to watch,
so
though.
so so it was a completely different thing, but you had, like, for example, we get the word assassin comes from assassin or cicada, which basically they had like their own little, group of hitmen, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And one of their main things was to ensue panic and ensue, not just murders, but also panic in the land, and also to start causing disturbances. So the way that Islam and a lot of people out there are saying things like, well, Islam, it's the religion of peace. Actually, Islam in itself translates to is, meaning, submission, and Islam law is the religion of what? Submission. So with Islam, when they started slaughtering a lot of people, what they wanted was to cause terror, and they wanted basically no resistance at all. So I don't want to get on an Islamic tangent here, but anyways, so all right, so okay, so one of the things that was really interesting was that they found all of these different boxes, scattered all across not just France, but all across Europe, and a lot of them had, for example, they had sketches of the pyramids, right?
Yeah.
They had sketches of the pyramids, and on there they had what looked like lightning of some kind or some type of electricity. Now people look at it and they were thinking that the pyramids might have been at some point designed in a way that they can generate their own form of electricity. When you had Tesla, and this is one of the conspiracies, which I really like. So Tesla, when he was designing his first sketch for direct current, he actually utilized a sketch that looks similar to a pyramid.
Oh, no way.
So you can actually go and look at Tesla sketches, and some of them were pyramids, and he was way ahead of its time. He wanted to make energy free, and then he had designed this whole thing where if we keep it running this way, energy will always be available and always be free. So one of the things that people were looking at is the Knights were guarding these type of sketches, and it was way ahead of his time. Electricity? What the hell is electricity? This is, hundreds of years before the idea that lightning was composed of electricity, And then here you have Egyptians and sorcerers trying to figure out a way to create what looked like light bulbs, because they had also some sketches what looked like orbs, and it looked like there was like little things that looked like there was light coming out of them. So somehow these people were trying to figure out back then, like, okay, how do we make whatever this is, and then we can make light from it, and then we can harness it from the sky by the shape of these pyramids. And then here you have the Knights Templar having sketches that they were guarding regarding this. It's like, it's insane. So with the conspiracy of the Knights Templar, it's crazy because there's a conspiracy out there also saying that they were guarding the map to Atlantis. They were guarding, the map to Atlantis. They were guarding, other forms of religion too, like saying like they were, like, for example, with things like Reiki, there were sketches of things that look like Reiki that they had. And remember, this kind of stuff was forbidden under Catholic rule. So someone out there told them, we have to protect this because if they find it, they're gonna burn it. So
what I found interesting was that in 1867, a British archaeological team discovered a series of 82-foot deep tunnels fanning out vertically and horizontally underneath the mosque on the side of the temple in Mount Jerusalem, and the tunnels ran all the way to King Solomon's temple, and inside those tunnels it was littered with all kinds of objects that they had stowed. The Knights of the Templar had stowed under there, and then apparently the tunnels kind of got filled in, or on purpose, or through just geologic forces, but they had a lot of stuff stashed. So that was really fascinating to me. I mean, there's so many things like you're just talking about, Deacon, that's like, wow. I wonder where all that are. Where are the archives? I would love to
where
see
is
that on
everything?
display.
Right.
So that's a really good question, because some of it is actually found in the British Museum. So for example, they also found a copy of one of the original writings from the Apostle Paul, which is Codex. I think it's Codex B. And then Codex B is a big fragment of the original writings of Paul. I believe it was when Paul was writing to Romans in the book of Romans. So you have this in a museum that was found in a box. So they found it in a box alongside other things too. So with the symbols that were on there, they were trying to identify what it was, because they're saying this does not look like it was from the Crusades, because again, the Crusades cross looks like this, right? It was the other cross, and they're saying, like, could have this been the Knights Templar? It's a little faded and we can't tell, but I think it could be part of the Knights Templar. Were they guarding all these kind of things so it wasn't destroyed? Because at some point you had the Catholic Church destroying everything they considered holy. For example, they were destroying things that were that were written in skins for the Bible, because they wanted control of everything. So they started destroying what was considered Christian texts and Christian manuscripts and papyri. So they were destroying all these things that they couldn't, get their hands on it. They would find it. They even put hits on certain books of the Bible, like certain scrolls. It's like, okay, I want you to find this. You find it, destroy it. And they were utilizing, the Crusades to do so. But then it was hard for them to do so when they were being guarded by the Knights Templar. And they're saying, like, what is the real number of the Knights Templar? Because a lot of people are saying that, it could have been 300, it could have been 400 knights. But then when you look at the sheer military might of, the Crusades, there were thousands of them. They took on Saladin and his hordes, and they were also in the thousands. So they're saying, like, what is the real number here? Because how the hell is it possible that only 300 or 400, Knights Templar can actually hold off a huge army? So they're beginning to think that maybe as they went, they taught and trained people not only to defend themselves, but also to become soldiers. So they were spread all around. And like, maybe that's one of the things. And then one of the great, sorry guys, I'm getting a little excited here, but one of the great conspiracies here is that each area where the Knights Templar were set, they each had a sacred or holy object that they were guarding or hiding. So that's how they were able to find these boxes with these symbols of the Knights Templar all around, not just all around Europe, but some of them were found in Asia. Some of them were found in the Middle East. Some of them were even found in South America, believe it or not. So they're saying, like, how the hell? So they believe that the Knights Templar never really went away, because remember that when the Vikings converted to Christianity, they started sailing everywhere. They believe they made it to South America, and like maybe the Knights Templar didn't really go away. Maybe just like almost like a secret society, just kind of like
they bled into like different cultures.
Different cultures. I mean, when you look at Freemasonry, a lot of those Freemasons have symbols of the Knights Templar. So what if some Vikings or some the Portuguese sailors that were part of the of the Knights Templar, and then they were also guarding and hiding these sacred objects. And
Oh,
it
yeah.
could be things that were seen as
Yeah,
there was
it's crazy.
Alone.
yeah. So there was a lot of things that back then people saw that they were silly. Like, why the hell would they be guarding this? And then till very recently, they were able to look at it. Scientists were like, you know what this is? This is a formula to blah, blah, blah. You know, this is how we, and they started realizing that a lot of the technology that they had was not only very ancient, but also very advanced.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what you talked about, some of the artifacts that have shown up all over the place, and King Solomon's temple was supposed to have the Ark of the Covenant, and there was all kinds of stuff in there. The 10 Commandments. There was a lot of stuff that was supposed to be in that temple that the tunnels went to, and they found those tunnels, in the 1800s, right? So what if all of that stuff was really there and they moved it all around the world to keep it safe, and they don't know where the stuff is now? Yeah. So it's kind of fascinating that it could be stowed somewhere, but nobody knows now.
Yeah,
maybe that's why the tunnels were built.
It could be. I mean, it's interesting too. Yeah, and I found it interesting. They were talking about like the cover that covered the Shroud of Turin. It's the linen cloth that was believed to be placed on the body of Jesus, and so this was like for hundreds of years later after the Crusades ended. But apparently, they're saying that they the Knights Templar had this shroud and kept it safe for a long time. And just recently, they just done a DNA test on this shroud because there was like belief that this wasn't around the time of Christ, but now they're finding with the DNA that it was. So it was pretty interesting to learn. And we talk about the Freemason connection, right? And believe it or not, there's also some connection with the Hellfire Club down in Ireland. Yep. There was some connection that the Knights Templar may have been part of that group as well, or leaders with that group. So it's just interesting to see all these conspiracy theories. Oh, Friday the 13th, my favorite day.
Yep, there's that's actually where that comes from.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So so the question is, how does the Knights Hospitaller fit into the Knights Templar? Okay, so again, it's what we were talking about, how there was so many, at some point, there was so many fragmentations of the group. That's how we get, like you were just saying, the Hellfire Club, you get the Freemasons, you get the...
Don't think too hard.
Sorry, guys. I'm sorry. I'm trying to...
You're going to hurt yourself. Be careful.
Are we done here?
I
Okay, so he also with St. Patrick and in Ireland, how Ireland was divided between the Protestants and the Catholic Church. I don't know if you guys watched the old episode where we had on St. Patrick's Day about why is there green and then orange to the flag of Ireland, is because when St. Patrick arrived, St. Patrick was a Protestant. So when he arrived, the Catholic Church had taken over Ireland because Ireland itself was so divided over so many different tribes. They were warring with each other, so it was easy for the Catholic Church to take over. When St. Patrick came in, he basically united all of the what they were called barbarians uniting into one giant force, and a lot of them actually ended up converting to Christianity, over 130,000. But anyway, so as soon as they did that and they all became one force, they were able to kind of push. They were able to push the Catholic Church to the other side of the country. So the Protestant side is, St. Patrick's, his colors were orange. So a lot of the people that celebrate St. Patrick's Day and they're wearing green, it's like, well, actually what you're doing is you're siding with the Catholics. So you're not celebrating the independence of Ireland. You're actually celebrating the enslavement of Ireland. But anyways, the point is that the military force that was utilized to help unite these people, they believe were remnants of the Knights Templar. So they establish an order there, and they also have what people called the damn it, what is the name of this? I'm sorry, guys. Jeez. Okay, so
You need to
there,
Google
there,
it.
no,
You're talking
I'm trying
about
to.
another group like the Freemasons, or is that what you're trying to come
Yeah,
up with?
no. It's basically So a different branch, but also there was another sacred object in Ireland, which the staff of the staff
Oh,
of Saint Patrick was
of
seen
Oh,
as a
St.
yeah.
sacred
Patrick. Yeah.
matter. Yeah, so that item should have been destroyed, but they found it buried in a wooden crate. It was made out of an old sacred tree, you know. And they out of this tree they built church doors, and also they built this staff. And this staff supposedly had the ability to, make snakes
Yeah.
go away. But anyways, so that was supposed to be destroyed by the Church of England, because when they took over, So anyway, so that was actually hidden and buried. So a lot of people were saying, who was the sacred order that buried this? Why would they hide it? They believed that it was another remnant of the Knights Templar. So when we ask, what does this have to do with this? What is this? These were all like branches of the Knights Templar, because they went everywhere, and it may not have been them personally, but it could have been their influence.
Yeah.
Like instead of
Okay.
allowing somebody to come in and destroy your sacred things, you can stand up for yourself, form an army and fight and fight it. Take your sacred things and hide them so they're not destroyed. And that
Yeah.
was, so
Yeah.
anyway.
I just think about the, influence here in America about the Knights Templar and how it's, again, we'll talk about the Da Vinci Code movie and how people are
Mhm.
now looking into things with the founding fathers and the formation of the United States. There's connections, including the Templar symbolisms in Washington, D.C., and secret societies that involve the country's establishment and how it's created.
Mhm.
So it's been pretty interesting. And yeah, I mean, what do you guys think? Was there a lot of positive or influential facts in that movie, or do you feel like that movie was just a complete sham?
I think it was a
Uh,
mix.
I think it was a mix too, but it's like you said, it's Hollywood. They
Hollywood
have
takes
to
liberties with
over
everything.
dramatize everything. So if you actually want to know anything about the Knights Templar, anything about the actual Da Vinci Code, just do your research.
Yeah. And
Don't
yes,
depend on the
Yeah.
Assassin's
do your
Creed is an
research.
awesome video game.
Yeah.
the what?
The Assassin's Creed
The
is an
what?
awesome video game.
What's that?
I have never played any other than Pac-Man and the Tempest, which was way before y'all's time. I have never
Listen.
played a video game.
We're gonna get you one of those VRs.
Mhm. Yes.
My new workout machine
I
came
think
with VR goggles. I don't know. Is that the same? I can't wear them though.
It's pretty.
You know what, SOS? I think you would like Borderlands. I could get you into that
I
one.
I
think so
don't-
too.
Have any
Fallout.
time for that stuff?
I
None.
spent like 8 hours straight playing that game.
Nope.
Sadly, to spent all night playing it when I was like in my early 20s, when I could
Yep.
stay up all night.
Do you believe the Freemasons were actually based upon the Knights Templar? I mean, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so so it's actually been proven that the Freemasons come from a branch off of the Knights Templar, just like the Knights of Columbus, the Columbus Crew, and all these different organizations out there they come from the Knights Templar and their influence. Back to the Da Vinci Code question. I mean, damn Brown with the Da Vinci Code. I mean, a lot of his writings were actually taken from a book that was published in the 1800s, actually, that was called The Holy Grail. And it was a conspiracy-based book. So a lot of the stuff that he actually did, he plagiarized from somebody else. Unfortunately for him, the person that wrote The Holy Grail was already dead. So no one can sue anyone. So
Right.
there you go.
So, we were talking about like different rules and stuff like that the Templars had to follow. I found a couple of them and it was pretty interesting. We're talking about meal times, right? And for one, they said no leaving the table unless it's a real emergency. if the brothers are eating at the table and any of them suffers a nosebleed or war cry is raised or there is a fire or horses are unsettled, to avoid harm to the house, they may get up from the table without permission for all these things and then return to eating at the table if they wish.
It's only
That
good
makes
manners. You're not supposed to. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't be an asshole.
Yeah. And the term in the doghouse basically meant if you were in trouble, you will eat on the floor. And when he eats, he should sit on the ground before the household. So he was the dog, which was crazy. And then they also had other rules. If a brother is found guilty of lying with a woman, and we hold guilty the brother who is found in the wicked place or in a wicked house with a wicked woman, he may not keep the habit, and so he should be put in irons. No shall he ever carry the piebald banner or take part in election of a master.
Wow.
That's the best one.
Okay, so I know this sounds really stupid, but in a way, doesn't this remind you of the guard at Arlington? The rules for Arlington, they have such strict rules for the Marines that guard the unknown tomb.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, really strict, and they have to live by that code forever. It's not just while they're in the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
I wonder, I mean,
Really? It's forever?
forever.
I didn't know
Forever.
that.
They have to take that oath that forever they cannot drink alcohol. Forever. I mean, all of this stuff is forever.
Yeah.
To be a guard on the tomb of the
Respect
unknown.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you shall never bring dishonor amongst yourself or your fellow countrymen for the rest of your life. If you were to bring any or even the thought of bringing dishonor, you would rather choose death than bring dishonor. So there was a lot of what's interesting is there was a lot of suicides that were seen, and they were like, those people probably, because also if you're going to be selected to guard the tomb of the unknown soldier, you didn't know, and you didn't tell anybody, you went and you did your shift and you got home. If you had family in a different state and they asked you what you were doing, you couldn't tell them like, oh, I was guarding the tomb of the unknown soldier. You were not allowed to say anything. You were just on duty. Yeah.
Wow.
Still.
Yep. But it's hard. It's hard now because of technology and everything.
Yes.
But you don't talk about it.
Yeah.
It's I don't want to get off the topic, but it is one of the most overwhelmingly emotional places I've been to in my whole life. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to go there someday.
Yeah, but this reminds me, this code, this ethic that they live by forever, that the Knights live by this as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And another one thing that's kind of makes me even factual in my brain, back in those times, people did not take baths very often. That's why women carried flowers all the time, because
they're stinky.
but they had to ask for them to take a bath. So, master, may I have a bath? No brother may bathe, let blood, take medicine, go into town, or ride a horse without permission.
Wow. Yeah.
Wow, I would have died.
Anything has to be stricken. Okay. Just saying.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So what's interesting is that you have, that's where the whole carrying flowers on your wedding day actually comes from. The fact that you didn't bathe, so you were carrying, these flowers to kind of hide the scent. So, I mean, was it Queen Elizabeth that said she was bragging about how clean she was, and she's had 2 baths in her life, and I think she was like 30 something, Yeah. And I think one of the things geez, like back then, I mean, water was something that, it was seen as something that, why would you bathe in it? Why would you leave your filth into the water when you could be drinking it? Because it was such a luxury.
And most weddings took place in June because that was They
Correct.
get bathed for their wedding if they got bathed
Yep.
at all. So it was a
Yep.
June wedding because it was
Then-
warm and the water was warmer and they could bathe.
Yeah.
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 Cool.
Yeah.
There's
True.
some things that I'm glad we left behind. Just saying.
Yeah. Thank
Yeah.
you.
And the Vikings
I like
actually were
the
cleaner
sound.
than the rest of the, the medieval
Because
times.
they were always in the sea.
Yeah,
Yeah, 'cause they were always
They're in the water.
swimming around.
You know, slaughtering people, but they were wet in the ocean.
Yeah.
except when it came down to purified drinking water. Drinking water was not something that they actually drew, like it was almost like lots over who got to drink the water. What they would do is they had this bowl. There's a great scene in the 13th Warrior, by the way, that has this as an example. So they had this bowl of water. They would get in the morning, they would drink it, rinse out their mouth, and then spit it back in there, pass it to the next person, and they would go, and then they would drink it, and they would pass it. They would drink it, and they would pass it. They would clean their sinuses, into the bowl, and then the person,
Yeah.
the person that drew the largest straw got to drink it that day. So after
Nope.
20 men rinsed out their mouth and then spat it in there and then clean out their snot and everything, he got the privilege to drink it. And then the next day, it could have been the other person, like, it's your turn to drink the water, because they wanted to conserve water.
I'll die. I'll
Yeah,
dehydrate.
no.
Thanks.
Yeah, no, I'm fine. Find me a river. I'm good
I'd
with
rather
that.
drink
Okay.
horse piss.
I
Please let me die.
take my chances with Giardia. Had that one.
Right.
Not going
Yeah.
there. Whoa.
I'm surprised they haven't named a medicine called Giardia.
Huh?
3 a.m. shots of Jess.
We had
Another
it in our water
conspiracy.
system at home, Giardia, because they weren't treating the water, and so like everybody in our county got it. It
Oh,
was so bad,
Literally, oh shit.
so bad.
So another conspiracy was that the Anunnaki, the ancient aliens, hired
Mm.
the Knights Templar to guard their city, and that's why they had so much knowledge. It's like, this is going to be your job, is to guard all the ancient knowledge and protect it, and then pass it on for the next generation. And then it went on from generation to generation.
That's crazy.
That's actually
it's big.
that actually is a conspiracy that I almost buy into, because where did they come up with the knowledge of some of the stuff without?
Mhm.
Nobody knew about
Like-
electricity back then. Nobody knew about.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Well, yeah, even when you had a Benjamin Franklin, it wasn't his idea, but he wanted to kind of prove to people, because he heard it from somewhere. He didn't know from where, but he heard it from somewhere, that lightning itself was composed of electricity, and you can utilize it to power things. And people are like, you're insane. So that's where the old kite and key thing comes in. Was
just
from
almost said
him.
Like, kite and key.
It comes from. So he heard from somewhere, and again, but we have to remember, and this is where the conspiracy part comes in. Okay, Benjamin Franklin was a member of the Hellfire Club, which
Yes, he was.
which was a branch off of the Knights Templar.
Mhm.
And he heard that lightning was composed of electricity. So
Allegedly.
yeah, allegedly.
Hey, can I go down a rabbit trail here for just a
Sure.
second?
Let's do it.
Okay,
Alice.
well, so the whole Hellfire Club, that's based in Ireland, right?
Yes.
So I was watching a podcast today that had a historian, she was a Catholic historian, and she's written a lot of books, and she was talking about the UFO and Bible connections. Okay, there was some pretty interesting stuff she was talking about. She's written like 22 different books. Really interesting lady, and
Not affected.
she was talking
Sorry.
about purgatory never shows up anywhere in the Bible. And she says, do you know where purgatory came from? And this is based on all of her research. She actually went to the Vatican, and she spent a long time in the archives researching stuff, right? Purgatory was actually really a place in Ireland, a cave that was allegedly full of demons. And if you could survive 24 hours there, you were all of your sins were clean. You were cleansed.
You were absolved. Yep, you were absolved.
It was really interesting that it never came into the doctrine. It was never in the Bible, but then they adopted it into doctrine later. I don't know how long, but she said it was really interesting that purgatory was a place. It was a cave in Ireland.
A literal place. That was actually, I mean, one of the main things that led into the Protestant and Catholic divide was the fact that the Catholics were saying, you know, if you buy alms and you do this, we're able to get somebody out of purgatory. And then you had, you know, the what the hell was his name? Why the hell can I? Martin Luther. So Martin Luther was the one that said. So the story is right. There was a woman, and her mother was sick, and she had died. And then the Catholics were like, "She's in hell, but you can buy her way out of hell by just buying an endowment. You know, buying an alm." So Martin Luther was a priest. And then he was standing there, and then he was watching that this woman was very impoverished, and she gave what she had to buy bread that day to the Catholic Church. She handed it to him, and then finally Martin Luther reached into the basket and gave her the money back, and she said, "Look, they're just robbing you. There's no such thing as purgatory," you know. And then immediately they chastised him, and they were going to throw him in prison. And then finally he's had enough, and he took the Bible, which is written in Latin. He's the one that was translated into German, you know, because of him. But anyway, so he took the Bible and he started writing down all of the doctrines that the Catholic Church had that were not biblical, and then he nailed them onto the church doors. And then when people were, you know, reading them, they began to realize, like, damn, you know, this whole time we've walked around it. And then that's when they became Protestants. The reason why a Protestant is called a Protestant is because they would protest against the Catholic Church. You know, they were, of everything that they were. So one of the conspiracies is they're saying, like, why is there a symbol that looks like a Knights Templar symbol in one of Martin Luther's journals? Because he was writing every night. He was writing, you know, his grievances. He was writing his struggles, and he was writing the doctrines that he was struggling with. And then in the middle of this journal, there was a cross that symbolized the cross that the Knights Templar actually had. So a lot of people are saying, like, what is yeah. So anyway.
Interesting. It's crazy that they even say about like the hellfire thing, and I started kind of going down that rabbit hole. And they were talking about how the Templars are involved in like worshiping a demon, Baphomet.
Yeah.
And they were engaging in like occult rituals, you know, accused of heresy and worshiping this demon idol. It's pretty interesting on how that is connected with the Hellfire Club and supposedly, allegedly, sacrifices and stuff like that. And the Knights Templar were part of that as well. So there's another little rabbit hole to go down. And I'll be the Mad Hatter wearing the hat.
The Mad Hatter? Do you guys know where the Mad Hatter term comes from?
Oh, here we go.
Tell me.
So
you're looking at
Mad
Hatter.
Okay, so people that were hatters back then, before they developed the system of steaming a hat, right? They utilized mercury to harden and to shape the shape a hat. So so the heated mercury, you know, had fumes, and then it would slowly eat at your brain, and then it turned you insane. And then it was a profession that you could do for 3 years before you went insane. So you would go crazy, and then, you know, bring in the next guy, and the next guy would come in, he'd become a hatter. So then when somebody was insane, they're saying, like, look at you, you're as mad as a hatter. So the Mad Hatter, there's where that comes from.
So welcome,
right?
The what?
I'll follow you, Jess.
We'll go have some tea.
I'll go with you, Jess.
Go have some tea. Also, guys, Refried Dreams is gonna have some buttons the shape of hearts for Valentine's Day, so you guys can go and get your heart on for Valentine's Day. I mean, I have one over there.
did you just say?
Get your heart on.
So
Yes, he
I
did.
have my heart on. So for those of you that also want to get your heart on, and so we're gonna be sponsoring, over at the zoos for the beaver exhibit, because we all know that beavers love when you have hard-ons.
That's true. That's true.
What?
Beavers do like that. Beaver like that. What can I say?
Yeah, so
Sorry.
get your heart on. I have a heart on. So what? Oh damn, we're already at an hour.
We
So,
are.
Woo!
My
It's a great
cough is
episode.
acting up. It's making
yeah,
me
so
cry.
anyways, guys,
think,
this was
That's how we end the show.
Right.
Decon has
Yes.
his heart on.
I hope
Yeah.
that the new song, like "Please Come Home, I Got Baloney."
Just keep it going.
Thanks for enjoying the
Keep
show,
going.
everybody. Thanks for being here.
I got my heart on. Bet you have a heart on too. See, senor, get your heart on. Yeah. Anyway, anyways, guys, thanks for joining us, guys. Remember to like and subscribe, share the show.
Yes.
We got all kinds of stuff. Head
Merch.
on over, get some merch, get a shirt, get a mug, get a sticker. I got some new stuff up, I think. Maybe not.
Sticker.
But there's some, trust me, if you've never been there before, everything is new. So head on over to that. They don't know about it because they haven't been there yet, so everything's new.
All right. Bye,
So-
everybody.
so- Yeah, so take it easy, and remember, guys, to always look for the place, especially when you're in the middle of Nightmare Road.
Bye.
Yeah.